Hey, Janindra, everyone. This is Stress Management Workshop from Jain Perspective, Session 5. Up until now, we have basically, let me just summarize what we have done up until now. We have, in the first session, we have gone through the definition of stress. We have tried to explore definition of stress from medical science or other sources, and we all came to realization that there is not a proper definition of stress, not a comprehensive, objective definition that exists. So, in order to learn more about stress management, we first have to understand the problem. What is stress? We have to be able to define it. But then we went into the fundamental Jain concepts. Over the last 4 sessions, we have studied some of the fundamental Jain sessions and Jain concepts. Now we are utilizing them to define stress. And last time we defined stress, we provided a very objective and clear definition of stress. But today we'll just continue our discussion from that point onwards. So let's see. First, let's see who else have joined the call today.
I just joined Prerit, Vishal here.
Hi, Vishal. You appear to be very dark. Maybe because of the sun in your background.
It's just a little bit cloudy out here, so.
That's okay. That's fine. Doesn't matter. Okay. Who else joined?
Jain, this is Nishit.
Okay. Nishit is here. All right. All right. Anyone else? Okay. All right. So with that, we will get started. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is the slide we left off from last time. So we defined what is stress, right? And what we defined it as, stress is a vibhav or unnatural behavior of view. So anyone remember this? Last time we studied Swabhav and Vibhav like natural and unnatural behavior of view. Anyone remember that? This table? Anyone have any questions about this table? In lots of material we covered last time. Any confusion about any particular terminology or any definitions here, or the way we are defining things, the way we have talked, like basically what we proved in the earlier sessions is one substance cannot do anything to other substance. And that's a very revolutionary idea. That Jainism propagates, because the entire world thinks that the stress comes from the circumstances or the external world. But Jainism says one substance cannot do anything to other substance, and then has this concept of natural and unnatural behavior of view. So and that's what we went into details last time. Any questions? Is Swabhav Paryay clear? I would like to ask questions. This Kashaya word, Kashaya clear? Do you know what word Kashaya means or passions mean? Anyone? Okay. Who else have joined the call? Vishal joined it, Nishit joined it. Anyone else? Hello, Saurabh, are you there? Okay, Saurabh is not there. Okay. So I'm assuming that these words are clear to you. Kashaya's passion mean or emotions such as anger, ego, deceit, and greed. As well as there are some pseudo passions or minute passions, like such as fear, laughter, the kashayas, anger, ego, deceit, greed, krodh, man, maya, lobh, as well as no kashayas. No kashayas mean pseudo passions or minute passions, which can eventually lead to kashayas, are fear, sorrow, disgust, dislike, affection, male sex passion, female sex passion, neuter sex passion, and laughter. So all of these are some form of kashayas, and they are unnatural behavior or vibhav paryay of conduct attribute or charitra gun of Atma or Jiva. So whenever we have any presence of any of these, then anxiety, uneasiness is bound to happen in soul. A lot of times, the anxiety or uneasiness is so minute that we don't recognize them, or we have different perception towards it. So we don't think that it is an anxiety, although it is an anxiety. So let me give you an example. According to this definition, a lot, if you think about it, you can say that laughter is also a kashaya, right? Now, that means laughter is also stress, minute stress. But it would be very, very difficult for the rest of the world to agree on that laughter is really a stress. Now, let me give you one example. A lot of times when someone has a heart attack and someone who has recently recovered, doctors advise them, their family members, not to give them too much stress. And a lot of times, that includes advice such as don't give them any shock in terms of negative news, or shock such that they will be excited very quickly with good news either. So even laughter in some form can also hurt sometimes. But most of the time, since laughter is much less intensity passion than this anger, ego, deceit, and greed, and jealousy, and fear, and so on. We don't, in worldly life, we don't consider it a stress. So that's okay. But in absolute comprehensive framework of stress, we have to understand that it is also minute stress. And I mean, it's proven, right? I mean, cardiologists do advise sometimes that not get excited with some good news either, or the excessive laughter. It can also raise the blood pressure and do a lot of things in body.
Prerit, question: would
Yes.
you consider laughter in the example that you gave as a stress? Because I think even you sharing some news with a patient who's recovered from a stroke or a heart attack, I still think laughter may not be considered stress in that kind of a scenario. I would say if you're laughing on someone or just laughing about something can cause stress, but not in the case where the patient where you're trying to share some news. I'm
No,
not
very,
sure
very
if
good,
I would have
very good,
considered
very
that
good
as
question.
stress.
I think, and then that's exactly what we want to clear out, and that's why we have brought up this point. So there are two framework of stress we are talking about. Okay, there are two framework of stress that we are talking about. One is absolute framework, where we are defining the comprehensive definition of stress, and that's like the most scientific analysis, because if we want to understand the problem, then we have to have a clear definition. So in order to understand that framework, in that framework, we consider every emotions that are unnatural behavior of you are stress. Like, think about it, laughter. Although we consider it as a good emotion or a passion, how long can you laugh? If you continue to laugh, then a lot of times we feel like, okay, I can't continue to laugh because my stomach hurts or whatever. It's not an emotion that we can sustain forever. No one can sustain laughter forever. No one can sustain anger forever. Yes, laughter is much lesser intensity passion or kashaya than anger. So in that sense, when we think of a worldly framework or a relative framework, when we try to compare different emotions, as a living being, we are going to go through emotions, right? We are going to have some form of emotions at any given point in time. Then in that framework, we agree that laughter is not really considered distress, because it's better to have laughter than the anger or ego, right?
Right.
Then the laughter in a good positive sense, not the negative sense where you're laughing on someone or making fun of someone or ridiculing someone, but just having a mild laughter about good things in life. So in that framework, yes, agree. We don't really call it a stress, but if you're taking about absolute definition, then you have to understand that, so that someday you can advance to that different stage. You're not saying that you have to give up laughing right away. That it's not the point of this conversation.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions on this topic? Okay. All right. So one thing, uh, this definition of stress makes it very, very clear that stress is a self-inflicted, and stress cannot occur from outside, cannot come from outside. You itself causes stress, right? So that means no circumstances can bring stress, no karmas can bring stress, other people cannot bring stress, your life, work situation cannot bring stress, your body, conditions of your body cannot bring stress. That's so revolutionary, right? Now, do you see the repercussions of this conclusion? This is a very, very revolutionary and far-reaching concept. Yeah, there must be a lot of dilemmas here, actually. When I heard this for the first time, this means that what Jainism is saying is that our body is independently controlled, and our desire cannot make our body control. Our body, the movements of the body that are happening, like our hands moving, our legs moving, with words that we are speaking, they're automatic. They are our desires don't make it happen. I mean, isn't it so hard to believe? I mean, I was really shocked when I heard this for the first time. I'm like, this is so shocking. I'm like, I can't believe it. Anyone have this question? Do you agree that your body is independently controlled and it's not in the control of your desires? Nishit or Vishal, what would you say?
I would like to believe it. I'm not sure I'm completely convinced yet, but yes, I can see the point.
Similarly, I also agree with what Nishit said, but I think it's more about now self-realizing every example on a daily basis and then trying to see how that stress was caused and really going to the root and understanding if it was self-inflicted or it's a scenario that we are blaming on.
Yeah. So let's just go focus on this point that first of all, according to this conclusion, this means that your body is independently controlled and one substance cannot do anything to other substance, right? So let's try to prove this point for a second. This means your body is automatically moving with your desires not intervent desires don't have intervention in bodily movements. So let's take an example of paralysis. A patient who is going through paralysis, so his physical condition is such that even though he wants to move his body or do the movements, he cannot do that movement. Can we see that? So even though there is a desire for a movement is not occurring. So what does it tell you? If desire was the sole reason and driving force of bodily movements, then desire is right there. In fact, intense desire is there to make a movement. Now let's take a different example. Anyone know of Parkinson's disease? Anyone know of Parkinson's disease?
Yeah, about forgetting.
Yeah, Parkinson's disease. A lot of times, what happens is that even though a person doesn't want to move their hands, they move. Remember that there is a slight movement. Can Ketan or Pritesh, can you tell us more about Parkinson's disease?
Yeah, it's called a pill rolling tremor. If anyone has video, I'm sort of doing it right now. They often do this. It's an involuntary movement, but the kind of thing that Parith is describing can be in a lot of different diseases. If you think about tics, a lot of people have tics, facial tics, involuntary movement of their face, or a lot of movements that can occur just spontaneously or sporadically.
So what does that do? Here, there is no desire, as Ketan mentioned, it's involuntarily movement. So there is no desire to have a movement, but body is still moving. Consider a different example. Suppose you are standing in a movie line, line to buy a movie ticket, okay? And you're standing there waiting, and someone were to push you from the back. You had no idea about it. You fall down, right? And even in that situation, you had no desire to make movement, but your body still moved. So all these examples, you can say that there is no guarantee that if you have a desire, your body will move. Your desires are not in your body is in not control of your desires. Basically, it's quite independent. So now this brings another dilemma, right? So why do I see my body move when I desire it to move, right? When I want to lift my hand, why can I, when I desire to lift it, and then I can lift it? It doesn't happen automatically. What about that? Anyone would like to answer that, why that happens? Anyone?
Sorry, repeat the question.
The question is that then why do I see that when I have a desire to make a movement, then my body moves? A lot of times our desires coincide with our bodily movement, right? Most of the time, like that. Whatever we called voluntarily movement, walking, talking, eating, they're all voluntary movements. So our desires are coinciding with our bodily movement. So why is that? Why does that happen? What roles do our desire or our passions play then in the body?
I think it's the paryay in our jeev matches with the paryay in our body, thus giving us the impression that we're controlling.
Okay. So are they merely a parallel events on not the controlling, mutually controlling events?
You could say that.
Yes. That appears like a right explanation. So you remember earlier when we took the example of mango and the grass, what we observed at that time is that when you put mango in the grass, and mango turns ripe. Mango turns ripe due to what? The grass or its own ability? Anyone remember that?
Its own paryay.
Its own ability, its own paryay, right? And what did we identify grass as? What did we call grass? What's the role of grass?
Nimit.
Nimit, or it's called instrumental cause or external cause. Basically, grass does not intervene with the change that is occurring in the mango. But when the mango causes that change within itself by its own abilities, and the present external factor which was conducive to that change is considered nimit. So here, similarly, body, when due to its own ability, moves or makes that movement, and alongside, if you have had the desire in your own soul about making that movement, then your desire is considered nimit. So desire is considered a limit. So desires and the role of the desire is a limit. But that doesn't cause that movement to happen. That doesn't control that movement. The movement can only occur. Body can only move if body has the ability of making that movement. Okay, is this clear? Is this clear?
Is Sarabji on the line now?
Yeah, Saurabhji, are you there? Saurabhji? I don't think Saurabhji is here yet. Okay, let me take one other example. Okay, all of our internal organs are they under our control or they are automatically controlled? Like our brain, our heart, our kidneys. Can we dictate them what to do? Can we dictate them what to do?
Involuntary control.
They are totally involuntary, right? Now, without these internal organs functioning, can we have our external organs functioning at all? If your heart doesn't pump, can you even stand up?
No.
No.
So then that just proves that your external organs are also involuntarily controlled. Does it make sense? Isn't it a very revolutionary concept? Because no, if you go out there in the world and tell someone, hey, your body is automatically controlled and you have no control over your body. How many people would believe it? How many scientists would even believe it? How many doctors would even believe? Then forget about them. Do you believe it now? With the amount of reasoning that you have gotten here? Do you guys believe it? Or it's still hard to believe?
So I have a question, Prerit.
Yes.
So how about we can practice and do certain things when we practice really hard, even if we are not able to control it, we are able to control certain things with practice. So we don't have total control over majority of the things, but certain things we can control by practicing.
Okay.
So how do you explain that? Let's say my vocal cords, if I don't speak, I'm really controlling them. Some will have real good control over vocal cord and they can mimic so many different voices. So how do you explain that part?
So what happens is that as we mentioned, right? Anytime there is an action that takes place, whether it's a bodily movement or it's any other action in the universe, like change in mango, there are multiple causes involved. One cause, the primary cause of that change is the ability of that substance, like a mango's ability to change, make that change happen, to go right. Similarly, body has the ability to make movements. If you ask body particles to gain knowledge, they cannot gain knowledge. Like for example, this chair or table, they don't have ability to gain knowledge. So you can basically form different shapes out of the particles. They will not be able to gain knowledge. So that primary cause of that change is substance own ability to make that change. And that's the intrinsic cause. Now, whenever that change happens, a lot of times there are external causes too. Like we saw in case of mango, grass was external cause. Like in the process of learning, if you're learning from a teacher, learning occurs because of students' own ability, and teacher is teaching. So the process of teaching and teacher at that point is considered a limit or external cause, right? So what happens is whenever we do a certain tasks in body, there are multiple limits. One is the desire to make things happen can be limit if that task occurs. Like suppose you wanted to move your hand, but for some injury you had a fracture and you couldn't move your hand. And then your desire to move your hand is not even considered limit because the change hasn't even occurred yet. But if your hand had the ability to move and it does move, and then you had a desire at that point in time, then it's considered a limit. Now, there are multiple limits. In one action, there are multiple limits. So desire is one type of limit, and the knowledge to make things happen is another limit. Like say if you want to make roti or chapati. So chapati, you cannot make chapati out of sand. The sand doesn't have the ability to be, the particles of sand doesn't have ability to be transformed in that state. But yes, you can make chapati out of wheat. But yes, all the other external instruments that we use and like our hands can be considered limit. Now, that's not the only limit. The knowledge to make chapati is also a limit. So what happens is over the time, when we improve our knowledge by practicing and perfection, what we are doing is we're just improving our knowledge. At that time, if there is an ability of that task to happen in that particular substance in the body, then it's going to happen. Like think about it. Like say suppose a sportsman, with practice he can improve his sport over the time, like playing cricket or whatever, right? So what if someone is handicapped? No matter how much knowledge he gains, no matter how much hard he tries to learn about playing that shot, if he's handicapped, he can't do that. He doesn't have that ability to make that change. Does it make sense?
Absolutely, yeah, it does.
Okay, all right. Is this point clear now? What we are proving in the end is that stress is self-inflicted, and there is nothing externally that can bring stress. Now, this raises another dilemma. What dilemma does this raise? This is a very revolutionary point, And it just raises one after another dilemma because it's just totally contrary to what we have believed up until now. Now if you say that your body is automatically controlled and all the actions are not in the control of your desire or your will, how can we punish criminals? I can just slap someone and say, hey, it's my body. I haven't done anything. It's not under my control. You can't even punish criminals. What about this? So the point I want to raise is keep thinking of this. Anytime you accept a point, you have to think of the repercussions. Don't just accept it blindly. Just think over it. If there are dilemmas, raise the points and get the clarification to those dilemmas. But this is a dilemma that I had experienced when I heard this fact. Anyone would like to anyone has that dilemma, or you have answer to this dilemma? Anyone?
I think you have to look at it in two different ways, right? One is the absolute point of view, and one is the day-to-day point of view, right? So from day-to-day point of view, the desire is what caused it. And desire is the nimitta, and it's what caused it. And in many cases, the criminals do intend to cause harm that they did. So I think you shouldn't necessarily confuse these two things, because there is the absolute way of looking things, and then there's the day-to-day point of view, and you have to keep both of them in mind, and you can't just live with the absolute point of view the whole time.
That's right. Yes. Go ahead, Surbi.
So I wanted to say you are absolutely right, whosoever said that, but the other point of view where you think that other people are inflicting stress in you because you don't have a desire, but still you are getting stress in a day-to-day life because of other people. So that's actually again your own karma uday, your own uday of the karma which you have either done in this life or you have done in past life, due to which you are encountering some difficulty in life because of somebody else or something. So that is your no karma. There are three types of karma: no karma, dravya karma, and bhav karma. So that's your no karma, due to which you are that person is just a nimit basically, but it's your own karma ka uday. So again, that stress is because of your own karma. So you cannot put the other person, you cannot put the blame on the other person.
You're right, Surbi. But the point that we're debating here is that on one side we are saying that stress is self-inflicted, and we proved the concept that the body is not in control of our desires, right? And with that perspective in mind, it raises another dilemma that, okay, now someone can say that, hey, by slapping someone, then say, hey, it's not in my control, it's my body. So that's a point, that's a dilemma that we want to answer. So,
okay.
Yeah. Let's think of our criminal justice system. Think about our criminal justice system, that in our criminal system, we don't punish people most of the time. We don't punish people for their physical act, actually. Most of the time, what they're punished for, in fact, all of the times you would say, what they're punished for is two things: either the will of committing the crime or negligence of the action. So let me give an example. Someone murdered someone. If that murder was for self-defense, if that is proved, that person would most likely would not gain any punishment. If that murder was for some premeditated purpose, for some other reason, with the intent of murder, then definitely that person will get punished. Similarly, if you were driving a car and you were not careful enough, you were negligent in your driving, then you'll be punished. But if someone were to just jump in front of your car and prove that that person jumped, although the physical action of hitting the car to that person would be the same, that person won't be punished. So even in our criminal justice system, what you're punished for is your intent and a negligence of the action, not necessarily the physical action all the time. Although physical action is an indication, but most of the time criminal justice system goes into the intent of the crime and why and under what circumstances that happened. So similarly, what really happens is, and then there are, as Nishit mentioned, there are two ways that Jainism makes statements. One framework, one point of view is the absolute point of view, which is called Nishchayana. So Nishchayana describes things as they are in reality. For example, if a glass is made up of glass, then it would say this is basically if pot is made up of glass, then you would say that pot is made up of glass. That's a Nishchayana. That's the absolute point of view. Now, there is another point of view in Jainism, which makes statements based on the circumstantial point of views. For example, oftentimes we make statements that give me a glass of water. Now, when we say give me a glass of water, what do you exactly mean? Anyone? What do you exactly mean when you say glass of water? What do you exactly mean?
A glass full of water.
Glass full of water. You don't mean that glass made up of water. Because glass cannot be made up of water. And in fact, it is not made up of water. But you know that what you mean. Everyone knows your worldly conventions. Your language is such that, and since glass can be filled up of water, and that's what you really want is water, you say, give me a glass of water. So that type of statements are basically circumstantial truth. They're made from the practical point of view, or in Jainism, it's called vyavharna. In reality, glass is not made up of water, but you are saying glass is made up of glass or plastic. What you're saying is give me a glass of water because you want water, and water and glass are coincided at that time. So similarly, in Jainism, when we say that, okay, the circumstances, if someone were to say that I slapped someone, what it really means is that I had a desire to slap at that point in time, and then the physical action also occurred. So in worldly point of view, from the worldly point of view, just like you make a statement that give me a glass of water, it's okay to make worldly statements such as, I slapped someone, or this person so and so slapped someone. And all of our worldly vyavhar, or the worldly exchanges that we see, occur in the language of vyavharna, or practical point of view. And that's not the absolute truth, but that's not in untruth either. When you say glass of water, give me a glass of water, you're not speaking untruth. You're not liar. It's a circumstantial truth that you're talking about. Similarly, when we accuse ourselves of someone that I slapped someone, or this person slapped someone, in that case where a person slapped, what we're really saying is that that person really had an intent of slapping, or was negligent about his actions in making that bodily action. So even in that case, we are just proving the presence of the desire to slap. And so criminal justice system is correct in its place, that it's in the framework or in the point of view that it's talking from. That's how things are defined, and that's how exchanges take place. So there is no harm, or there is no contradiction here. When the criminals are punished, and there is no escape of responsibility, because when one is going to have an intent of slapping, first thing is going to happen is, due to kashaya, that person will become stressed, or that person will become unhappy. And then if along with that action takes place, and because of that intent, criminal justice system will also, or the society will also punish. So there is no escape of responsibility due to the fact that, your body is totally independent, your desires are totally independent. It's still there. Is this point clear? Anyone has any comment? Yes.
Siddharth here. Sorry, I got just disconnected. I couldn't fully understand you. But regarding that criminal, you are saying that Nishchayana and Vyavharna is different. I just want to understand. Then why when we punish the criminal, because we are punishing because of his intentions. But the thing is, in reality, if we see from Nishchayana standpoint, that's supposed to happen at that moment of time, and it happened. But why we are punishing him? Because if supposed to happen next time, it will happen.
So if it's supposed to happen, it will happen. That fact doesn't prevent a person from the accountability of that action, right? Suppose like, let me give you an example. Suppose you have a task scheduled in your office tomorrow, and you know that at that point in time you are going to be in that meeting and you're going to be performing that task. That doesn't prevent you from the accountability of doing that task, right? You are still doing that task. If that task is worth rewarding, you will be rewarded. If that task is being worth punished, you will be punished. Like our the language of our worldly exchange. You see, what you are doing
Right.
is, what you are saying is that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But the fact that it's going to happen and the fact that someone is responsible for that, they are two separate things. You cannot give up the accountability because of the saying that, okay, it's going to happen, then it's going to happen. The person is still accountable
Yeah,
for it. Someone is making it happen.
My point is, whoever the murderer is, he himself knows that he did the murder. He is accountable for that. He just doesn't want to do that, right? What my point is, whoever did those type of things, he knows that he is accountable for that. He already knew that.
Okay. So what's the
So
point?
so what's the point of punishing? Because I know what I'm saying is, because in the
Can
the
I give an
awareness
example?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, who is this?
Siddharth.
Yeah, hi Siddharth. This is Surbhi. So, if let's suppose that a person climbs on a mountain and he jumps from a cliff, then he is bound to fall, right? Then you can't say that his intention is to jump only. So why should he fall?
Mm-hmm.
So similarly, here, if the intention is to kill somebody and he kills it, then he's bound to be punished, because the next step of punishment is also bound to happen. Just like you said that
Yeah.
I think Siddharth's question is more like, what purpose does punishment is serving, right? Because that murderer
Yeah.
already knows that he committed murder. So what purpose
Prerit.
punishment is serving? So Siddharth, let's look at one example. A lot of times what happens is that, as we discussed, in any things there are nimit, right? There is some causes like nimit. They don't intervene with the action, but they are there, and the presence is there. So a punishment acts as a deterrent or a nimit for a person not to commit that crime.
But what I'm saying, from Nischayana's standpoint, Prerit, understood. From Nischayana's standpoint, if he commits a crime, he has also bound, supposed to bind some more karmas that he will be punished in the next future, next janma or whatever.
Nischayana doesn't even talk about other substance. The absolute
But what I'm saying is, he will be punished anyway.
Correct. So he would be punished, but how he would be punished, right? The means of being punished are within the society, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to understand. That it's just because of the society, we are just saying, because we follow this custom of punishing and having the all this type of laws that needs to be followed.
Yeah. They act as a deterrent. They are the nimit for preventing those type of crimes. But despite, that just proves that punishment that is happening, it can be a nimit if that person doesn't act in a criminal manner, right? But that is not the sole cause that can prevent it. That's why it's called nimit. I mean, if that person still wants to commit a crime, despite of all the threat of punishments being there, he or she does it, right? We see that every day. The punishments are there. Still, people do murders, do all sorts of crimes. So that can act as a deterrent. That's just meant to deter people from doing that crime. The punishment is just serving that purpose.
Say it again.
But that purpose is also bound to happen, Prerit, right?
Yeah, if the person is determined to do it, right? See, one thing we have to recognize, first thing is this: there is an individuality of the accountability of people, right? One substance cannot interfere with other substance, right? No matter how hard we try, if a person doesn't want to change his belief or doesn't want to change his intentions, he won't change. There is nothing in the external world we can do. But
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
with
No,
the
my point was that even the punishment is bound to happen. So that's also in Krambad.
correct, correct,
So,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so if you're talking about sequential modification, like we talked that everything is bound to happen, that in that modification is just the law of cause and effect that just takes place. That if there was a cause, then there will be effect. So if there was a crime, there will be a punishment for it. So,
Yeah, and many a times that person is not punished right away. Like there are many criminals who are doing crimes and they are still not punished. But it's not. So that doesn't mean that they should do crime. So and because at that moment of time the punishment is not bound to happen, That's why it did not happen. Maybe, but it will definitely happen some other time. So Krambad is always following. It's all parallel basically.
any other questions? Anyone? Hope this point is clear. There are three things we want to clear out: the individuality or accountability of a person. Second thing, that there are different point of views that we make statements from. So there is no escape of accountability, even though things are independent. Okay, that's the second point we made. Okay, right. Any other questions? Okay, we can move forward if there are no other questions. Okay, Saurabh here. Saurabh, are you here? Okay, Saurabh isn't here, but we are going to go into the details of these kashayas in the coming when we address the sessions like management of stress. Right now we are defining stress. So we are just giving the name and the summary of these kashayas and these emotions, but we will go into very details of every type of emotions. And let's go back to this drawing. What is this? You have a wrong belief and wrong understanding. Along with that, you have kashayas, those extreme emotions, and then along with that, you have extreme unhappiness. And think about this. A lot of times, a lot of people have passions of doing cold-blooded murders, right? Like think of doing hunting, activity of hunting. People take pride in hunting a lot of times. And although it's extremely cruel emotion, just like sometimes some people do cold-blooded murders, the extreme act of extreme cruelty. And although a person may not have a slightest of the guilt or repent for it, and in that case, although that person is not realizing that that's the very cruel emotion, and that person may be taking a pride in enjoying it, that doesn't mean that it's not a stress. A lot of times what mistake we make is that we consider stress is what we think of stress. But Jainism goes into much deeper perspective about stress. Just because we enjoy certain type of emotion and we think it's not stress doesn't mean it's not stress. And with that, what we are going to do is we're going to go into a little bit of classification of stress. Okay, and then we will go into different phases of stress. In worldly life, what do? We identify sometimes things as positive stress and negative stress. So positive stress in our worldly life is like, suppose if I wanted an iPhone and I got an iPhone and I became excited about it, then we may identify it as a positive stress or some good news, and then we got excited about that. So that's why cardiologists ask sometimes relatives from making the shock statements, whether they're extremely good or bad, to the patient, right? Because they don't want them to get too excited. Similarly, negative stress is basically the emotions that we don't like. Positive stress could be laughter, feeling of getting something, fulfilling desires, and the negative stress, according to our worldly life, is basically things that we don't enjoy, things that we don't like, the things we want but we don't get it, or something that we didn't want and that happens. So those are the things that are considered negative stress. Now there is a difference how Jainism classifies things. In Jainism, the positive, everything that we consider as a positive or negative in worldly life is considered negative stress, because anything that makes you more dependent on external things, that increases your desire, that increases your passions, is considered negative stress. Then the question becomes is what is considered positive stress according to Jainism? So the definition is any time there is a desire to reduce passion, suppress passion, your kashayas, that's considered a positive stress. So things like, okay, if you want to help someone, you have to give up your attachments about something to give something to someone, right? Help someone. Similarly, you're following the ideals, the worldly idols who gave up their kashayas and became completely equanimous. So following them is also considered another type of positive stress. It's a stress because you still have desire, but it is a positive because you have because the direction of that is basically you want to eliminate that. That's why it's considered. That is a milder form of stress. You can say positive stress is a milder form of stress. And a lot of times in worldly life, the milder form of stress, such as laughter, is not considered very harmful, and generally they're considered acceptable. So we don't really necessarily say that it's stress from our worldly point of view. But the definition that we have provided here is from absolute point of view, and one has to understand the absolute point of view so that we can keep the reasons, we can understand the reasons and the root causes, and then progress to the different stages. This was the classification about positive and negative stress. So negative stress would include wars, conflicts, violence, possessions, unethical behavior, and some of the outcomes of that would be basically high blood pressure diseases, increased activity of endocrine system, and all this and that. Positive stress would be, as I mentioned, a desire to reduce our passion. So the type of bhakti that we may do about Arihant Bhagwan, Arihantas. So because we are idolizing someone who attained complete equanimity, and they want to reduce passion. Similarly, doing swadhyaya, studying the right scriptures that will help us eliminate the kashayas or stress, is also stress. For a lot of traditional Jain people, it would be so hard to believe that even doing bhakti and puja is stress. It's a stress. It's a positive stress. Isn't it difficult for you to accept? Anyone?
Very good point, Prerit.
Yeah, doing puja and bhakti, it's so hard for people. Even having the bhav of daya and dan, right? Daya, that is also a stress. It's a positive stress. It's better than having a negative stress, but it's still a stress. One has to realize that. A lot of people think that those are the things that are worth doing their entire life. But Jainism strikes a balance here actually in life, that yes, that state of positive stress is better than negative stress. Stress, at the end of the day, it's still stress. And one has to go to the different level to basically even to get out of state. The key message that we want to pass on here is don't blame others for stress, accept your own responsibility for your stress. Circumstances and other people do not bring stress. Give, which is ourselves. We are independent doer and knower of the stress, and all causes of stress lie within ourselves only. The condition of stress cannot be mitigated or managed without getting rid of the wrong beliefs and kashayas. And state of stress is a state of misery, which is a positive or negative. Whether it's a positive or negative, it's worth getting rid of. And the study of Jain fundamentals is extremely important to define stress, understand its causes, and to find ways to manage stress. That's what we are going to look at in coming sessions. Now, with this, are there any questions in anything that we have studied?
Prerit, I'd like to ask something.
Yes.
Would you consider that at every given moment of time, a person is always under positive stress, and based on his capabilities of controlling it, it would either lead to negative stress or it would just end as a positive stress?
Oh, you are absolutely right. At any given point in time, all worldly beings are under stress. Whether we call it a stress or we don't call it a stress, That's becomes just a matter of choice. But if you're talking about absolute framework of stress, then yes, we are under stress. And depending upon our own perspective and our attitude to handle, look towards that situation, either we may end up in negative stress or positive stress, right? Like for example, let's take an example. Like suppose we had a difficult time at work, something that we didn't expect have occurred. Now, someone could take a different perspective. Someone could take a positive perspective, say, okay, I did the best I could. This is unplanned, unexpected event, but okay, we will come out of it. And that person may not end up in stress. Now, some people may take it more personally and be like, hey, why did this happen? I didn't expect it to happen. It should not have happened. And if that person tries to find blame instead of taking positive direction, then that person will end up in a further negative state of stress, right? Just like you mentioned, you're exactly right.
And then another question related to this is, every moment that we are awake, our our mind is constantly thinking. So there is some form or shape of stress every time, every moment. When
Every
we are
moment.
sleeping, and if someone dies in his sleep, when the mind has stopped functioning, would that be also considered that his passing away as some related of a stress, because his organs are also functioning in some form?
Yeah. So not only in awake form, but even in the sleep, we are under stress. Think about this. Suppose you have a desire of buying a house. I'm just making it up, okay? So now you're not going to think about house every moment of your life, even when you don't have a house. You're going to go to work. You're going to get engrossed in work. You're going to think about different activities throughout the day. But you still have a desire to buy a house, right?
Yeah.
Just because you don't think of a house doesn't mean you don't have a desire to buy a house. But that desire, although it may be in the background and you may not pay attention to it every time, it's still there. So long the desires and attachments and hatred and all those emotions that we mentioned are there, stress is there. What happens is, since we don't know how to deal with those emotions in a correct manner, the stress over the time accumulates. Just accumulates. Although we may or may not think about it every moment, although we may not recognize it at times, although we may enjoy certain of those emotions at times, but those things accumulate over time and they end up taking toll of a person mentally. And even in sleep, we are in. So in your example that you gave, even in the mode of sleep, we are under stress actually, because we have those desires. We very much have those desires. A lot of times, we find that some people have bad dreams, something that occurred sometimes back, and they have bad dreams. So we are thinking, we may not be consciously thinking, purposely thinking, but the activity of thinking is continuously going on even in this mode of sleep. Stress is not going away in the mode of sleep, okay? It just gets masked out. Your attention turns away from it.
Okay.
Can we say here, Prerit, buddhi purvak and abuddhi purvak, like in the sleeping state, consciously we are not maybe consciously we are not thinking anything, but unconscious mind always is stressed.
Yes, you're right. It's buddhi purvak means unconscious, subconscious, involuntarily, and buddhi purvak means the purpose of doing that activity. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
So if this is clear, let's go about go to some of the stages. Okay, now another dilemma here is this. Since you are not raising questions, I'm going to raise questions. When I heard this for the first time, I'm like, you're calling every emotion as a stress, including laughter. So then what's left in my life? I mean, if I give up all my emotions, I can't be successful at work. I cannot have my social life like I have. I cannot have my family life. Then what's left? What's the point of life? We are living beings. We are going to have some emotions. That's how we live. So then what do we do about that? Isn't it a dilemma? Anyone?
Well, Prerit, so we will continue to have those emotions, but how to deal with those emotions, we will have a different perspective. So that will help us in handling the particular emotion or action that happens in our life.
Very true. Very true.
Or even the fact that positive emotions are always going to remain. It's how you, whether you convert that into negative or whether you take that positive effect at that moment, I mean positive stress, and then just move on with it as a next thing and not continue thinking about it and taking it to a negative stage.
Yes, yes. Both of you are very true, very, very right. So let me go back to the stages of stress. What we just defined were two extremes, right? The state of no stress, which is a state of Siddha Jeev or Arihant Jeev, who has infinite knowledge and complete right belief and complete equanimity and complete happiness, infinite happiness. Now here, notice something, okay? They have something called complete equanimity, total equanimity, Sampurna Vitrakta. So the absence of emotion does not mean it's an emptiness or a void. It's actually a state of something very, very positive. And that state is very, very defined in very much detail in Jainism. It's a state of supreme bliss. Just to give an analogy, in worldly life, basically the analogy that they give is any pleasure that you may have in worldly life, that you may experience or you may call it like the best feeling of your life, and infinite times that pleasure, but a different type of pleasure. Okay, this is not the type of pleasure that is dependent upon external circumstances or comes with that type of worldly feelings or emotion, but it comes with a lot of peace and contentment and infinite times. That type of state is called vitrakta or equanimity, and that's the matter of experience. Actually, it can't be described much in the words. Just like, if I were to ask you what's the taste of sugar, you can say it's sweet. And then if I ask you what's the taste of mango or ripe mango, you can also say it's sweet. But the difference, and not everything comes into the words, right? There is a difference between sugar sweet and there is a difference between mango sweet. So just like that, this pleasure cannot be all described in words all the time. It's a matter of experience. And so that first experiment is basically called this state of significantly reduced stress. When a person does that experiment and experience a partial fraction of that state, it's called a state of samyak darshan, or a worldly soul, which acquires right belief from that point onwards. And the stress, the extreme stress becomes much significantly reduced stress. So that experiment, how to perform that we can see later on as well. But what I want to mention here is that in between this extreme state of stress and in the state of no stress, the first major milestone is this state of samyak darshan, which is state of significantly reduced stress. But even prior to that, there are so many progressive stages of stress. So we know that as so long we are in worldly affairs, we're going to have some type of stress, whether positive or negative. It's how Vishal and how Vishal mentioned basically that we are going to be able to leave negative stress and remain in much of a positive stress. So what happens is, as we acquire the right understanding of these concepts, our passions, they get suppressed, or they become much more milder. They may be there, but they become much more milder. Along with that, even before you achieve this significantly reduced stress state, this samyak darshan state, you may experience a lot of peace and a lot of contentment and a lot of relief, and it's a much relieved state. And so how to basically achieve that state is also basically you're going to learn in this workshop. So there are lots of progressive stages. You don't have to think that, hey, this sounds too extreme, I can't do that, and there is no point, I cannot do this. Yes, no one's asking you to make that jump 100% directly. It can't happen. Water doesn't become like from a state of ice to state of steam. It goes through its progressive stages. Just like that, in the matter of stress, we are also going to go through progressive stages. And there are different stages I'd like to define. One is a state of extreme stress that we are in currently. Second one is another extreme state of complete no stress, which is Siddha Bhagwan. Again, that's advanced stage of spirituality, right? Then there is in between. This is the first milestone in spirituality, which is state of Samyak Darshan. But even prior to that, as your kashayas get milder and milder, much milder, you become peace. That state you can say state of milder stress. And then even prior to that, a lot of times following good practices in life, that following healthy lifestyle, making sure you're not overspending and having making irrational decisions. A lot of good practices in life, those practices, what that will do is it will contain your stress. Because a lot of times what happens is, think this. Suppose you're already under stress, right? We have these desires and we have these attachments and passions. We're already under stress. Now, if you were to set irrational goals for yourself, that, hey, I want to become an owner of Microsoft, or I want to become an owner of Apple, then what's going to happen is you're going to cause yourself unnecessary, you're going to aggravate your stress, basically. There are good practices in life that you can follow to even contain that stress or suppress that stress. And that state is the first one to start from. So progressively, how we are going to start with containing stress, go into making a milder form of stress, then how from there onward, how do we go to a state of significantly reduced stress? That's what we are going to see in this workshop in coming sessions. So don't have to think of extremes. Take baby steps. With baby steps, you will see that you'll see a lot of positive change in your and the attitude and the way you deal with situations in life. That's all we wanted to clear this time. Any other questions? Everything clear? Hopefully, I tried to clear a lot of dilemmas that occur with this learning these concepts. These are extremely revolutionary concepts in life that you'll only find in Jainism. Do you think of it that way? Have you heard of these concepts anywhere else before? Don't you think they're revolutionary?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they are truly revolutionary. I was shocked, and I had such a difficult time to believe them. And but over time, when I thought more and more about it, I realized I know this is truth. And I want to make sure that all of us we transition smoothly in learning these concepts, and that's the purpose of this workshop. Hopefully, that would be fulfilled. If you have any questions or any suggestions, feel free to send us. Is there anyone here who haven't introduced themselves before? If you would like to introduce yourself, go ahead right now. This is the time. Anyone?
I joined late, but I don't know if everybody knows me. My name is Surbhi Jain, and I'm in India right now. Just had a baby 3 weeks ago, so cannot attend all the sessions. But yeah, Prerit has been doing an excellent job in organizing these sessions and preparing these presentations, and he's really an excellent guy to take an effort on these things. Thanks, Prerit.
Well, thank you, Surbhi. Thanks for joining. And Surbhi lives here in Houston. She's been in India for a few months now. So hopefully you'll be back soon, and we'll see you here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else here who we don't know or would like to introduce yourself? Okay. If no one else, yeah, Ketan, you can stop recording then. Thank you.
Jai Jinendra all.
Yeah,